All right, sports fans, welcome back. Kris Corey here with Across the Line. We're going to change gears here a little bit, get into the MMA combat sports world again. You know, some events starting to pick up here after a little break due to COVID. An exciting event coming up at the Moncton Coliseum. Fight League Alantic coming in here March 18th, putting on a pretty substantial card, as well as some pay-per-view capabilities here for their fans. And we're going to chat with co-owner, CEO, John Foster. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Kris. Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, no worries at all. Appreciate you taking some time here for us. I'm going to have a chance to pick your brain here a little bit about, I guess, some combat sports and MMA, being a co-owner here for Fight League Alantic in the Maritimes. But wanted to also find out a little bit about your background in the sport and sort of how you came up through combat sports yourself.
Yeah, man. I mean, I started training at a mixed martial arts here in the Annapolis Valley in Nova Scotia, I guess 15, 16 years ago. Not long after I took over ownership of the club, and we've been running it ever since. So, you know, years of doing jiu-jitsu tournaments, competing in amateur MMA myself and boxing. You know, I did one pro MMA fight, and then moved into, you know, doing jiu-jitsu tournaments and all that, like I mentioned. I worked with Derek, my business partner. You know, while we were doing our own separate tournaments, we had a great partnership. And then when the time came down the road, I was like, man, let's look at MMA and see what we can do with that. He was thinking the same thing already. So we partnered up, and we've kind of, you know, built up the MMA scene again around Atlantic Canada, and we're starting to put together a pretty awesome stable. We've had some great shows, and yeah, man, I have, like I said, my own stable of fighters at my club, and I train myself still, even though I don't compete. So it's just fantastic to be kind of on the other side of things now, and working with all the fighters and coaches to make things happen, and just see these young athletes coming up through now and putting on a show.
Well, and like you said, there's a large demand, a lot of athletes looking to get in and learn some of the disciplines and the combat sports yourself. Like you said, you fought some jiu-jitsu. Did you train different styles of combat sports as well growing up to sort of have a diverse background?
I didn't get into it really until I was in my 20s. I started boxing in college, and then I started training Brazilian jiu-jitsu when I was 23, 24, and just kind of never looked back. I knew very early on I wanted to do mixed martial arts, so of course you train your wrestling and your judo, your kickboxing, your boxing, and everything else. Put it all together, you know, work the wall fighting and that. So, yeah, I mean, my school is a mixed martial arts gym. We're multidisciplined. Like we have a big jiu-jitsu program, also a big boxing and kickboxing program, and then we put it all together, and our guys compete just like, you know, a lot of these other schools in the Maritimes now, with the growth in mixed martial arts in the last 20 years in Nova Scotia and the rest of Atlantic Canada, we've really seen a lot of these schools come in that do MMA. They're not just a boxing school, and they're not just a grappling school. I got into it hard in my 20s and never really looked back, man. I'm about to turn 40, and you know, me and Derek are at the age and that now, and that experience level in our careers, with what we've been doing with entertainment and putting together tournaments, that we're you know, able to move on to this now and make that thing happen for the next generation.
Well, absolutely. Sort of being able to promote it and give an opportunity for these fighters to compete here at the highest levels. How rewarding is it for you, sort of running your own gym for these fighters to train in, and then also be able to see them compete here on sort of the big stage here for Fight League Alantic?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And as a gym owner, I mean, I've heard the same feedback from a lot of other gym owners. Just having an avenue for our athletes to compete in, and to be able to be MMA fighters in the Atlantic provinces without having to travel is huge. And we're starting to see more and more guys come out of it now, where we established, you know, we had our first fights, our first event in 2020, the beginning of 2020. We went into COVID. We're going into our 8th event now, and just the amount of available athletes that we've seen in the last, you know, 3 years, I guess, now is huge. And it's because they have something to compete in. So people are showing up at the gyms in the Atlantic provinces and saying, hey, I want to fight. And they go, awesome, let's start training. Fight League Atlantic's going. They're doing a bunch of shows this year, so we can make that happen.
Yep. And like you said, you've got a stable yourself of guys that you've trained, but a lot of top fighters coming in from all around North America, really, the States, Ontario, Quebec. Maybe tell us a little about some of the fighters that are going to be on the card here coming up in Moncton on March 18th.
Yeah, so March 18th, we've got another incredible show. We've got 4 fighters coming in from Ontario, and they're competing against all athletes from Atlantic, Canada. Our main event is Sean Wallace. He's 8-2. I mean, he's only been in decision twice in 10 fights. He hasn't fought in quite some time. He was off during COVID, and now I seen him the other day, and he's back in shape and looking ready to go. He's fighting a gentleman named Justin Condi. He's 3-0 MMA out of Ontario, but he has over 100 amateur kickboxing fights, so he's got a ton of experience. So Sean's a black belt. They both got a ton of stand-up experience. They're both very good on the feet. Morgan Rhinus is going to fight a gentleman called Terry Lemire, also coming down from Ontario. He's coming down from Timmins. These guys have like 20 combined pro fights. They're very exciting strikers with, of course, well-rounded games, been doing it forever. And then another pro fight, we have Isaiah Medichuk coming down from actually Grand Prairie, Alberta. So my mistake on that. We have a guy coming from Alberta. And he's going to fight a kid, Jesse Hertz. Yeah, Jesse's just super exciting guy at PEI. All these guys, Morgan, Sean, Jesse, they're all PEI guys,
Yeah.
by the way. PEI produces a ton of tough guys. And we always got a bunch of them on our show. So our pro main card is going to be run by the PEI guys. Expect a lot of fireworks there, and a lot of experience is obviously going to be shown. Then Dylan Shepard, a highlight machine out of PEI, is fighting Jimmy Pino in an amateur advanced rules title fight. We've got Olivia Bryson coming down from Ontario as well in the amateur ranks. He's going to fight Hayden Label from PEI, and then on and on. Like, we've got 8 fights, like I said, three pro fights on the main card with an amateur 5-round title fight, and it's just going to be a packed night. I suspect nothing but fireworks like the last show at the Coliseum in January, which was a sold out event. We had Christian Savoy headline, who, if you're an MMA fan in New Brunswick especially, I'm sure you know the name. So it's great. We're getting to work with more and higher level talent all the time as we grow.
Yep.
And we've got shows lined up all the rest of the year with there's some really exciting matchups and stuff already coming together and being put in place for those. So
Yeah. Well,
it's onwards and upwards.
like you said, sort of, Fight League Atlantic 8, so your 8th show so far. I've already had 4 or 5 at the Coliseum here in Moncton. And like you said, I'm sure there'll be some return customers after the last couple of events that you guys put on. Is there anything that separates you or differentiates you from maybe some of the other local fights that go on? You're going to have this available on pay-per-view as well. Maybe tell us a little bit about why fighters want to fight for Fight League Atlantic also.
I mean, we treat this like this is a business for us. This is our job. We're doing everything by the book. We've been doing everything within our own system to try to refine it and make the shows better and better. It's incredibly important to us that the production value is very high level, that our pay-per-view show goes off very well. So we're constantly working with our team to improve the little aspects of these events and make them better and better and smoother and smoother. The athletes have a good experience. They're taken care of. The coaches and everyone else comes and has a good time, but gets taken care of. Everything runs how it's supposed to. And I just think, as far as professionalism and consistency is where we've really been able to, to carve out our own space here in Atlantic Canada and really just kickstart this whole scene. Like I mentioned, it's MMA's back big time. So,
well, like you said,
here we are.
Especially before COVID, MMA, boxing, the live events were, really hot and trending, and then all of a sudden everything was shut down for 2 years, and now, like you said, just sort of starting to get that rolling again here, and you guys are certainly doing a great job of that. You also said you got a couple of shows coming up here later in the year. You're going to be in Sackville, New Brunswick. Got another show in Moncton in November, as well as some shows here in Nova Scotia also. Maybe tell us a little about how, like you said, you're sort of focusing on the Maritime region here geographically and spreading out some of these fights also.
Yeah, exactly. So the two provinces we operate out of is New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. When we first started off, the plan was to operate out of Nova Scotia, work out of venues and places here. When COVID happened, obviously we did one show, COVID started, we got shut down, and then, we had a couple other shows that almost got off the ground and just got shut down with restrictions. And then we had one. It was only a couple weeks out, like I mentioned. It was just what happened, and Nova Scotia shut it down.
Yeah.
New Brunswick reached out, said, "Look, come up here, come to Moncton. We'll take care of you. We'll make the fights happen." And we did it, and everything went great. Small crowd, obviously, but we got some athletes in there and made it happen. And then since then, the Coliseum in Moncton's kind of become our unofficial home. So, like you said, we just did the Coliseum in January. We did it last November. We're doing it again now, March 18th. Then we head back to my stomping grounds in the Annapolis Valley. We're going to do a show in Windsor, May 6th. So I'm very excited for that one. And then in September, we head back to Pictou, Derek's hometown. So we do another show there. Last year's show there was awesome. Sorry, I skipped over June. June, we are in Sackville, New Brunswick.
Yeah.
And then back in November, back to the Coliseum again. So that's pretty much the whole year. We got 5 more shows running out with the next one coming up next year. We're booking into 2024. And, every day we're talking to more and more athletes and coaches and teams. We have a full registry we've put together to try to make it easy for people to get in touch with us. And it's just, it's constantly refining the system and trying to make it work as well as it possibly can, make things happen.
Yeah, like you said, you guys are definitely gaining momentum with the amount of fighters coming in, looking to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for some of the UFC fans out there, is there any difference between, say, MMA and sort of the pro fights maybe that you guys are putting on, or is it pretty much standard MMA rules apply across the board?
Yeah, so the rule set is the same in the professionals. The
Okay.
UFC to the professional fighters would be the same. You can elbow to the head, knee to the head, and all that. When you get into the amateur ranks, there's novice. So if each fighter in the matchup has less than three bouts under their belt, it's novice rules, so no strikes to the head on the ground. It essentially turns it into a grappling match once it hits the ground.
Yep.
On the feet, you can kickbox, but there's no elbows or knees to the head. You can knee to the body. Once you hit advanced amateur rules, the strikes open up to the head on the ground. You still can't elbow or knee to the head standing, but essentially it's the same as pro rules other than those couple of things.
Sweet. Yeah, no, that...
So, yeah. There's a couple limitations on like leg locks and that, but other than that, it's optically, it looks very similar. And the pros, you're running the same rule set. So anybody that's used to watching MMA, whether it's UFC, Bellator, CFFC, any of these bigger promotions, you're getting the same thing, but it's local. It's still got the big light show. On the pay-per-view, we bring up a gentleman by the name of John Morgan. We bring him out of Las Vegas to do our commentary. He works with CFFC. He's always involved in the bigger shows in the industry, and he's just a phenomenal commentator. So he adds a lot to our pay-per-view show, and he works alongside Nova Scotia MMA vet Kris who fought in the UFC and Bellator World Series and all over the place. So the two of them together are just awesome on the mic. And then Danny and the boys who run the pay-per-view, they're just killer, man. They're really good at what they do. So, like I said, we're constantly refining this product we're putting out, and the pay-per-view show to us is just, it's the same as the live show. We basically put together 2 shows. We have everything going on in the arena, so everyone there has a great experience, and then everything going on the pay-per-view, again, same thing. And it's top notch. You're gonna get a good show and a good experience either way.
Yeah, absolutely. And fans can order the pay-per-view at FightLeagueAtlantic.com.
You got her.
Great production on the pay-per-view, but nothing quite like being at a live event for some MMA on the floor here when the guys are banging. So, like I said, wish you all the luck here March 18th at the Moncton Coliseum. Going to be a great show. All the best with Fight League Atlantic, and I look forward to seeing you here in Moncton.